Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so no more photography now, please. We can all concentrate on hearing, the most important function of hearing about Krishna. Name 266, Subhujah. So this is an easy name to understand. Su means very good, very nice, very beautiful. And Bhuja means arms. So everything about Krishna is beautiful, good, in all respects. Generally, we address the Supreme Lord and any respectable persons primarily by their feet. There are so many words in this regard. Charana-aravinda, Pada Padma, like lotus feet. We address them at their feet to express that we are taking a subordinate position. Actually, we're in a subordinate position. But some recognize it and some don't. But of course, there is not only his feet, all of his transcendental body is very beautiful. There's the well-known prayer of Kunti Devi in which she states, Nama Pankaja Nabhaya, Nama Pankaja Maline, Nama Pankaja Netraya, Namaste Pankaja Angraye. She doesn't start at the feet because she is in the position of being the aunt of Krishna. But she says that his navel is just like a lotus. His flower garland is of lotuses. His eyes are just like lotuses. His feet are just like lotuses. So all of the parts of his body are very beautiful. As there are 1,000 names here being described, so we can take them one by one, part by part. This is transcendental anatomy. Everything about him is very beautiful. Madhuradi pater akhilam madhuram. Everything about him is very sweet. So Subhuja means very good arms. The commentators, they focus on his arms as being strong, majestic, giving boons to his disciples. So that also demonstrates that difference between the various Vaishnava Sampradayas and the Gauriya Sampradaya in particular. Gauriya and also Vallabh Sampradaya will very much emphasize more on the sweetness and the beauty of Krishna, more than the greatness. He's great and he's sweet. Some emphasize the majesty more, and some emphasize the sweetness more. So the Gauriyas, they emphasize on the beauty of Krishna, his beautiful arms. So the majesty and the strength of his arms, that is meant particularly for protecting his devotees. Of course, Krishna, he doesn't have to do anything individually with his arms, because he can do everything just by desiring. Parasya shaktiya vividhaiva shruyate swabhavaki jnana bala kriyacha. He has all shakti, so just by desiring he can do everything, but it's not so exciting just to be a remote controller. So Krishna, he comes into this world and he personally performs the activities of paritranaya sadhunam vinashayata dushkritam. He personally does this, although he doesn't have to do anything personally. But he does so out of his sportive nature. Liladha, one who is always performing pastime. He likes to perform various activities in relationship with his devotees. So his arms are prominent in that. With his arms he protects the devotees. He takes he provides shelter for them. And in this way he's known as Abhayada. He gives fearlessness. In other names you've seen that he awards fearlessness. He does that by his arms. At the temple of Varadaraja in Kanchipuram, he's in the mudra of giving blessings. So on his hand, Varada, giving benediction, is written in Tamil, Ma Shuchaha, do not fear. This is giving fearlessness. So by his hand, he is giving fearlessness. So in this way, his hand is Subhujah, very good, because it gives fearlessness in this world of fear. This is the world of fear. We should be afraid because it's a bad place. There's always birth and death, but at his lotus feet, bhaja hure mana shinandanandana abhaya charana ravindare. If we take shelter of Krishna, then at his lotus feet we're always fearless. There's nothing to fear. Krishna will protect us. His hands, how many hands does he have? How many hands does God have? Chaturbhuja. He's well known as Chaturbhuja. He's also Shadbhuj. He's also Dvibhuj Murlida. How many hands before Daksha Lord Vishnu appeared with? 10 arms. And that's related in Bhagavatam. And actually he has unlimited. Sarvata Panipadam Tat. Everywhere are his hands and his legs and everything else about him. But generally the devotees, they like to see him as Dvibhuj Murlida, two-handed, holding a flute, or with 4 hands, holding Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. Or it can be said in other orders also. Generally Shankha comes first, whichever way you say. There are 24 forms, principal forms of Narayan, depending in which hands the various ayudha, the various weapons are there. So these 4 attributes are there for the sake of paritranaya sadhunam vinashayata dushkritam. With the chakra and gada, he destroys. With the shankh, he declares his protection to the devotees. And with the padma, he simply blesses the devotees. So, from his subhuja, from his beautiful hands, in these beautiful hands, he has all of these, and his arms are also decorated with that amulet, kavacha, and elsewhere in Vishnu Sahasranama we'll see the name Chandanangati. His limbs are anointed with sandalwood paste. So his beauty is unlimited, but his devotees decorate him also with these various ornaments. So, Baladev Vidyabhushan, the Gauriya commentator, he says that by his two strong arms, Vishnu grants fearlessness to the devotee and to the devotees and protects the Vedas. He's, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, he's described as Ajanulambita Bhujo, which means that their arms are so long that they come down to their knees. That is one of the symptoms of a great personality. So, Krishna, what do we all do with our hands? Well, the first thing in the morning we do is brush our teeth. So many things we do with our hands. If someone has no hands, we say they are Vikalanga, or what's the modern term now? Differently orientated or so. They have all these different terms. They used to say spastic, and then they said physically handicapped, and then disabled, then physically handicapped, then physically challenged, and now differently abled. That's the latest euphemism that they've got. Definitely the arms are very important. What does Krishna do with his hands? Well, he plays his flute, holds his flute. I made a list of some of the things that he did. So many things he does. With his hands, he puts his hands down so that we can hold and he can pull us up. He lifts his arms up to be picked up himself by Yashoda, and he holds her breast. He also took the breast of Putana. He held the breast in his little hands. In those little hands, the whole universe is resting. But his hands are so big they can hold the whole universe, but he makes them so small that he can hold the breast of Yashoda. Very important Leela. Don't put your right, usually you have to put your right hand up, but for this one you have to put left hand up. Although just in Sweden in the temple we saw there, it's from Nathdwara, they should know better, they had a right-handed Giridhar, Murlidhar and Giridhari. Maybe the painter was in too much ecstasy at the time. Or maybe it's another yuga or whatever. So he lifts Giri Govardhan. The Vrajavasis are very grateful that he lifts Giri Govardhan. They can all have his darshan for 7 days. But something they complain about that he does with his hands is stealing the butter and distributing it to the monkeys. That's a favorite Leela. They're actually very happy. And then they come and say, "Oh, you're so naughty boy, you stole all our butter." I didn't steal your butter. Who would steal your butter? Your butter's useless. He already fed it to the monkeys. And then he tries to feed more, they won't take it, and they're so full. You see, I've tried to give it, even the monkeys won't take it. So, and Yashoda Mata, she becomes very concerned that, oh, my food's not good enough. It's very embarrassing that my son is going out and stealing somewhere else. So, in various avatars, especially he's famous as shooting arrows, as Kodandaram. Ram is shooting arrows. He has many weapons. Also there's described he has his sword, but we don't hear much about him fighting with a sword. That's described in fighting with Hiranyakashipu. That was also there. His club is his favorite weapon. All sides are in God. He fights with his sword. And of course, with Sudarshan. He embraces the cows with his hands, with his arms. He embraces his friends. Sudama was there's one famous verse, Kvaham daridra papi, not so famous, but somewhat famous. Kvaham daridra papiyam, kvah Krishna srinikeetana. Let's see, then I didn't remember. Then I didn't remember the rest of it, but he says, whereas I am just a fallen so-called Brahmin and Krishna is the husband of the goddess of fortune, but he has embraced me with his two hands. So he embraces Sudama very lovingly and feelingly. He embraces the gopis. He's known as Sridhara, one who embraces Sri Lakshmi. Sri also means Radha. Another name is Radhadha. So he embraces Radha. During the Ras Lila, it's described that the gopis, they became very tired after so much dancing. We might become tired after some time of dancing. Maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. But the Ras Lila that went on all night, and by the power of Yoga Maya, that became as long as one night of Lord Brahma. So the gopis, they had some apparent tiredness, but Krishna would just rub his hand on their forehead and all that tiredness would go away. One important function for us, he blesses us. We ask for his blessings. With the chakra, he throws the chakra, and famously Shishupal was killed. But even just with his own hand, with his Subhujah, without any weapon, he cut the head of that Rajak in Mathura. That is called washerman, one who takes the clothes and dyes the clothes. He ripped apart Hiranyakashipu. So, in this way, these are some of the activities that he does with his hands, and I'm sure you can. I just jotted down a few things. I'm sure you can think of many more. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to think of Krishna, right? So we can remember Subhujah. Another name, 267, is Durdharah. I just mentioned Sridhara, which means he who holds Shri, one who embraces Lakshmi. So another name is Durdharah. And Dur is usually translated here as difficult. So he's very difficult to hold. But it's not given here in the commentators, but in the commentaries. But one thing I thought is that Dur can also refer to the Dushtajan. So he's not only holding Lakshmi, but he also, even those who are not good people, ultimately they're also dependent on him. Manusha partha sarvashaha. Mamavat manu vartante manusha partha sarvashaha. No one can escape Krishna. We can pretend that we don't have any relationship with him, but we do. Either directly or indirectly. Either we submit to Krishna in bhakti, or we are controlled by his indirect potency, Mahamaya. So he doesn't reject anyone. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishta. He's in the heart of everyone. Even if people forget, they want to forget Krishna, but he doesn't forget them. So Durdharah means he's difficult to hold. So this is at all levels. Yashoda Mai, she wanted to tie up Krishna, but she found it very difficult. However much rope you bring, you can't tie up Krishna. But she eventually tied him up, as all the devotees are able to tie him by pranaya rasana. by the ropes of love, not by any material ropes. There are so many terrible asuras. They could not contain Krishna because he is more powerful. So he is not possible. They couldn't resist him, in the sense that if we say we couldn't resist, nowadays that usually means that because we're attracted to them, but I'm using it in the sense that as in war, you can't resist. If you want to fight with him, it's a very bad idea to fight with Krishna. Because you're going to be defeated, that's for sure. Krishna will always win. Then he's very difficult to hold in the mind also. The yogis are trying. That's the aim of yoga. Dhyana vastita tadgatena manasa pasyanti yam yoginaha. But it's very difficult for them. Pantastu koti shatavatsara sambragamyo vayoratapi manaso muni pungavana. Sopyasti yad prapadesimya vinchintya tadve govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. We offer respect to Govinda Adi Purush, who, even though the yogis with great mental concentration, they try to hold Krishna in their mind, but it's very difficult to do so because Krishna is beyond the mind. He's avinchintya tattva. The mind's business is to think, to conceive. But Krishna is beyond any mundane conception. So it's very difficult to hold Krishna in the mind. And we may find that also in the practice of Bhakti Yoga, that we're trying to think of Krishna, but due to past sanskaras, impressions in them, sanskaras and vasanas, even though we know Krishna is all attractive and we've dedicated our life to serving Krishna, but somehow that attraction of Maya seems to be very strong. So we don't hold Krishna in the mind. He doesn't allow himself to be captured except by those who have pure love for him. Or rather, his devotees, they don't allow that because they don't want Krishna to be mistreated by someone. That Krishna is there, but you neglect him while you watch the television, or some such thing. Krishna, he wants mamekam sharanam raja, surrender to me only. So he doesn't give himself, he doesn't allow himself to be held in the mind of those who have got any other interest but him. So, in this way, he's very difficult to hold in the concentration. And even if we try to understand him, it's very difficult to understand Krishna. There are so many people, they may write PhD theses and write different books about Krishna and they make commentary, they have different ideas about Krishna. But it's very difficult to understand Krishna. And even the Vaishnava acharyas, they may say different things. And people say, well, you people, you don't even understand among yourselves, you're all saying different things. But why is that? Because Krishna, he's unlimited, and he manifests himself differently to different persons. Basically, we understand his identity from Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, he gives we can say, the definition of Krishna. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adi Dev Majam Vibhu. In Vishnu Puran also, the Parashara, he gives the definition of Bhagavan, which fits Krishna exactly. Aishvaryasya, Samagrasya, Viryasya, Yashasya, Shreyaha, Jnanavairagya, Yoshtraiva, Shannang Bhaga Itingara. I presume you all know all these verses, is it? I'm not explaining them. Are you not familiar? You don't know this? Param Brahma, Param Dhama. You know all that? You know? Well, to explain even one word, then again, We're explaining one name, and then to explain that we have to explain another word, and then it goes on and on. That's why we can never come to an end. But especially when I was researching for that Bhaktisiddhant Vaibhav book, I would read so many lectures by Bhaktisiddhant Saraswati Thakur. And usually he would just quote the verse and then he wouldn't explain it. Because everyone's supposed to know what it means. That's the idea. But I guess alright, briefly then. Param Dhamma means he is the supreme abode. Param Brahma comes first. What to explain the word Param Brahma? Then again we go on for another 20,000 years. And still we won't understand because he's difficult to understand. That's the whole point. So Param Brahma means the supreme spiritual reality. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam. You should know what this means. You can understand, right? If you know any Indian languages, Param Pavitra, supremely pure. That's all. Param Bhavan means you. Purusham Shashvatam, you are the eternal person, the eternal male, the eternal enjoyer. Divyam, you are divine, you're not flesh and blood. Spiritual, completely spiritual. Adi Deva, the original God, the origin of all the gods. Ajam, unborn. Vibhum, powerful, great. Then the definition, Aishvaryasya, Samagrasya, Viryasya. These are the 6 qualities that by possessing them in full, one can be called Bhagavan. Not that anyone and everyone can be called Bhagavan. I mean, nowadays, that's another syndrome of Kali Yuga, there are so many so-called Bhagavans. But to actually be Bhagavan, you should have all opulence, all wealth, all power, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge and renunciation. So, this is the basic definition of Bhagavan. Srila Prabhupada used the term Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's very difficult for us to comprehend because we think someone is very powerful if they have a big strong body, or if they have political power, or financial power. Everyone has some kind of power. That's also some kind of power, to lift up a flower. An ant is very strong. For the size of his body, the ant is much stronger than my body or your body. But one ant can't pick up this flower. So, I have some power. Compared to the ant, my strength is inconceivable. The ant cannot imagine to pick up such a thing. But Bhagavan, his strength is so much more, we cannot imagine it. So, in this way, his opulences are so great that we can't imagine because we're all like frogs in a well. We think that whatever we can see, that's the ultimate limit of everything, but we can't imagine how great is God. So he's very difficult to comprehend. But there's a basic definition. But then beyond that, he manifests himself differently to various devotees. Some see him as Rama, they particularly like to see him as Rama. Some particularly like to see him as Krishna, even as Krishna. Yashoda, she sees him always as her young boy. She can't imagine that he's dancing with Radha. And Radha will never take the form of the mother to him. So it's the same Krishna, but different devotees, due to their different loving relationship, will see him differently. So it's very, very difficult to comprehend. So devotees, they try to understand him as much as he presents himself in Bhagavad Gita. But over and above just trying to understand him, we should understand Krishna is not just a subject that to be studied, like some people may study butterflies, and some people may study quantum mechanics, and some people may study statistics, and there are so many subjects to study, but Krishna is not an object to study. He is to be loved. Mother Yashoda is not writing a PhD thesis on Krishna. Still, we have to understand what are His glories, just to understand that He is who we should submit to, due to our foolish nature of trying to dominate this world and enjoy this world. We should understand He is supreme. But over and above understanding Him, we are meant to love Him. Then another meaning, Durdharah, is that difficult to hold means he's not supported by anyone else. He's independent. He doesn't need anyone to help him. He is the source of all energy and all powers. In His Leela, it may seem like that. Just like when He's holding up Giri Govardhan, some of the cowherd men there, they think, oh, this little boy Krishna is holding up this hill. We'd better give him some help. How can he hold it by himself? They think he must be getting tired, so he's just a little boy, so we'll hold it up for him. And so Krishna lets them take a little weight, and then they feel it's too heavy, and then Krishna holds it. He doesn't need any help. He's not dependent on anyone else. Still for His Leela, out of love, He makes Himself subservient to His devotees, and that is His great mercy upon them, that even though He's so unlimitedly great in all respects, but He presents Himself as if dependent on others. And actually He does become dependent on their love, but ontologically, when we consider Him as Vishnu, the supreme controller, then He is not supported by anyone else. Rather, He supports everyone else. He supports everything. Alright, I'll finish there. Just half an hour. Hare Krishna. No clapping, please.